This is Medieval Dragon from Blizzplanet. We are here to interview Micky Neilson and Matt Burns about Diablo III Book of Tyrael. Um, we also have Montoya from Blizzplanet. Hi everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Hey.
Um, let's start with the questions here. Blizzard published Diablo III Book of Cain as a primer for the Diablo III mythos. Where does Book of Tyrael fit in Blizzard's grand design? What is the purpose?
So there were a lot of reasons for doing Book of Tyrael. Probably the main reason was because we did Book of Cain, and we came up with a ton of amazing content and all kinds of great ideas and everything else, and backstory and characters and all this juicy stuff. And then we figured, okay, we have a certain number of pages to be able to tell all this in, and we just didn't have room for everything. So the biggest thing for Book of Tyrael was, okay, we've got all this amazing information that we want to share with people. Let's do it in a follow-up book, and let's see what other opportunities we have to convey this information. So that was one of the big ones. And then, of course, tying into upcoming game content and having something that's going to serve as a bridge to the next expansion, that was also a big consideration. Matt, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, that was all good. I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is that as part of the in-game mythos, Book of Tyrael really falls into line with Book of Cain in that, unfortunately, Cain is no longer with us, right? So Tyrael is kind of taking on that role in a certain way with the new Horadrim as the provider of all this information and as this researcher and stuff like that. So it very much is a continuation of that tradition.
Right on. I got a question for you guys. How did the experience writing Book of Cain inform your next book, Book of Tyrael, as far as how you approached telling the story to people? Because it seems to be slightly different since it's told from an angel's point of view. So
Right.
what was that like?
Yeah, it was, we learned a lot of lessons from Book of Cain. So when we went through and we did that, we did a post-mortem after that, and we looked at, okay, what worked really well, what didn't work as well, what changes can we make, what can we do better. So there's that, but then also in addition to that, there's just the difference of the book itself. This is from an angelic perspective. Originally, it was going to be the Book of Leah. And so the structure and everything else and the tone overall would have been a little bit different. It was going to be Leah's notes, and then Tyrael was going to take over and go from there. And we still liked that structure, but the more we developed the book, then it became obvious that, well, this is really Tyrael's book. And so we made some adjustments based on that as well.
Yeah. And I think between Book of Cain and Book of Tyrael, there were some interesting differences just in terms of the purpose, not our purpose, but the character purpose. So Cain, he was telling the history of the universe basically, and he was throwing out all kinds of really cool information. But Tyrael had a very direct purpose here. He was providing this very specific information for the Horadrim, the new Horadrim. So that informed the writing style and just the layout of it quite a bit as well.
The first part focuses mostly on Adria. This is the first time we get to explore Adria's past and motivations. Why is the timing perfect now to introduce her story?
Well, part of the reason is that when we were developing Book of Cain, we had created a lot of content, or we had a lot of content that we wanted to create, that we didn't have room for, and so we ended up cutting some of that, and Book of Tyrael was kind of the perfect place for a lot of it, and that was one of the things, was Adria. It gave us a chance to really explore her backstory and what she had been up to and kind of her motivations and stuff like that. And she may be she's a character that's still in the lore, so we don't know what she's up to. We don't know when we're going to see her again, but we got to keep our eyes on her. We got to know what we got to know about her to prepare if we ever meet her again.
As I was reading some of the Book of Cain story in Book of Tyrael, I could see Leah writing annotations. What is the function of Leah throughout the book?
Yeah, so she has she has those journal entries, and she has little notes on Deckard Cain's pages. So Leah was a character also that we wanted to explore a little more and get into her head a little bit more. And again, this was a great opportunity to do it. And we wanted to see what thoughts were kind of going through her head during the events of the game. Maybe stuff that we didn't see in the game. And her function, I would say, is as much providing lore, since she's kind of annotating a lot of stuff about her mother's past and about Zoltan Kulle, and as much kind of a last homage to her, partly from Tyrael. He's putting a lot of her journal entries in here as kind of a sign of respect for the struggle she went through and how much he respected her.
What I like it about the way you set up Leah in the book is that she's writing these notes along the way when she's in Act 2 and in Act 3 when she's in Bastion's Keep.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a continuity between the game and the moment she's writing these notes.
Yeah. Part of me, when I was writing this, part of me always felt like this was a way for us to touch on the events of Diablo III without actually having a section that was just a retelling, because that wouldn't be as interesting. But kind of doing that through the lens of these journal entries and Cain's study of Adria and Leah's notes that are on there, it kind of gave us a little opportunity to remind readers of those events without it being kind of a dry and straightforward retelling of every single act.
Something that I appreciated about Tyrael writing about her was her legacy and wanting to make sure that wasn't tarnished entirely because of who she actually was. And since something he appreciates about mortals is legacy and sacrifice, I just found that very fitting.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah, that was something important. I mean, it's fascinating for people who know, obviously, what her fate is when they're reading this, and really being able to see, it's kind of heartbreaking from a certain perspective when you're going through the book and you're reading her notes and everything else, and you know what's coming.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen to her. You're just like, oh man,
Oh.
And it's
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
rough.
of stuff that was set up in the order as well.
Yeah, I appreciated that. Another question I had was, there's a big difference as far as the visual style of writings from Nephilim and writings from Tyrael. Nephilim are tarnished and stained, and Tyrael's writings are very pristine. And what was that like, developing an angelic aesthetic for his writings?
Well, we knew early on that in order to make the book work, we really had to make each section distinct. So we had to make, Cain's pages, Leah's pages, and Tyrael's pages very distinct, so that even if you were just flipping through it, you kind of knew when you got to a page, like, oh, this is Tyrael's page, or this is Kane's page. So that's why we kind of went with the white pages for Tyrael, with the very kind of dark black ink for not only the text but the artwork as well, and then the more sketchy kind of artwork for Kane. But that was something that we had talked a lot about in the development phase, and it just seemed fitting that for Tyrael, his pages and his artwork would kind of be very orderly and very precise and exact. You know, he would kind of have borders around things. When he did artwork, there would be like very clean, straight lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Cool, great.
There is a strong question mark in the book trying to make the reader doubt whether Adria's actions are for good or evil. She's not fully pictured as evil, even when her action seems to point in that direction. Her ties with Magda and the Coven, for example. Are we going to find out more about what is Adria's fascination of trying to do evil things, but at the same time they're good?
It's certainly possible. You know, I wouldn't say that it's not going to happen. And it's, you know, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong on her notes, Leah's notes, but so much of it was being filtered from Leah, right? So it's a lot of that is her perspective and the way she sees things, which might not necessarily be the reality.
Yeah. You know, it's she never met her mother basically until the events of D3. So all this time she's been wondering who she was, whether she was even alive. And so when she finally did meet her, I just imagine, you know, this is kind of a big moment, or the biggest moment in her life. This moment she's been waiting for. So she definitely is a little bit biased when she's looking at the events, or I mean the actions of Adria. You know, she's going to want to see the good in her. And that's part of just Leah's character. Is I think she tends to see the good in people. You know, she tends to be hopeful. So, you know, whether that actually means Adria's actions were for good, I don't know. It's you got to keep in mind that it was from Leah's POV that we're seeing some of this stuff.